Good early morning. We're back again, reading about 10 minutes a day from the Anarchist Handbook, organized by Michael Malice. And we are here on July 18th, 2021. This is episode 52. We're starting on page 200, and we're going to read the conclusion of chapter 14, Alexander Berkman, From Prisons and Crime, 1906. We may or may not get into Voltairine Declare. So we'll see. But here we go. A little reading. Deprived of his liberty, his rights, and the enjoyment of life, all his natural impulses, good and bad alike, suppressed, subjected to indignities and disciplined by harsh and often inhumanely severe methods, and generally maltreated and abused by official brutes whom he despises and hates, the young prisoner, utterly miserable, comes to curse the fact of his birth, the woman that bore him, and all those responsible in his eyes for his misery. He is brutalized by the treatment he receives and by the revolting sights he is forced to witness in prison. What manhood he may have possessed is soon eradicated by the discipline. His impotent rage and bitterness are turned into hatred toward everything and everybody, growing in intensity as the years of misery come and go. He broods over his troubles, and the desire to revenge himself grows in intensity. His, until then perhaps, undefined inclinations are turned into strong antisocial desires, which gradually become a fixed determination. Society had made him an outcast, and it is his natural enemy. Nobody had shown him either kindness or mercy. He will be merciless to the world. Then he is released. His former friends spurn him. He is no more recognized by his acquaintances. Society points its fingers at the ex-convict. He is looked upon with scorn, derision, and disgust. He is distrusted and abused. He has no money, and there is no charity for the moral leper. He finds himself a social Ishmael, with everybody's hand turned against him, and he turns his hand against everybody else. The penal and protective functions of prisons thus defeat their own ends. Their work is not merely unprofitable, it is worse than useless. It is positively and absolutely detrimental to the best interests of society. It is no better with the reformative phase of penal institutions. The penal character of all prisons, workhouses, penitentiaries, state prisons, excludes all possibilities of a reformative nature. The promiscuous mingling of prisoners in the same institution, without regard to the relative criminality of the inmates, converts prisons into veritable schools of crime and immorality. The same is true of reformatories. These institutions, specifically designed to reform, do as a rule produce the vilest degeneration. The reason is obvious. Reformatories, the same as ordinary prisons, use physical restraint and are purely penal institutions. The very idea of punishment precludes true reformation. Reformation that does not emanate from the voluntary impulse of the inmate, one which is the result of fear, the fear of consequences and of probable punishment, is no real reformation. It lacks the very essentials of the latter. And so soon as the fear has been conquered or temporarily emancipated from, the influences of the pseudo-reformation will vanish like smoke. Kindness alone is truly reformative, but this quality is an unknown quantity in the treatment of prisoners, both young and old. Some time ago, I read the account of a boy, 13 years old, who had been confined in chains night and day for 3 consecutive weeks. His particular offense being the terrible crime of an attempted escape from the Westchester, New York, home for indigent children. Weeks case, Superintendent Pierce, Christmas, 1895. That was by no means an exceptional instance in that institution, nor is the penal character of the latter exceptional. There is not a single prison or reformatory in the United States where either flogging and clubbing or the straitjacket, solitary confinement, and reduced diet, semi-starvation. Reformatories do not, as a rule, use the means of persuasion of the notorious Brockway of Elmira, New York. Yet flogging is practiced in some, and starvation and the dungeon are a permanent institution in all of them. Aside from the penal character of reformatories and the derogatory influence the deprivation of liberty and enjoyment exercise on the youthful mind, the associations in those institutions preclude, in the majority of cases, all reformation. Even in the reformatories, no attempt is made to classify the inmates according to the comparative gravity of their offenses, necessitating different modes of treatment and suitable companionship. In the so-called reform schools and reformatories, children of all ages, from 5 to 25, are kept in the same institution, congregated for the several purposes of labor, learning, and religious services, and allowed to mingle on the playing ground and associate in the dormitories. The inmates are often classified according to age or stature, but no attention is paid to their relative depravity. The absurdity of such methods is simply astounding. Pause and consider. The youthful culprit, who is probably chiefly in consequence of bad associations, is put among the choicest assortment of viciousness and is expected to reform. And the fathers and mothers of the nation calmly look on, and either directly further this species of insanity, or by their silence approve and encourage the state's work of breeding criminals. But such is human nature. We swear it is daytime, though it be pitch dark. The old spirit of credo quia absurdum est. It is unnecessary, however, to enlarge further upon the debasing influence those steeped in crime exert over their more innocent companions. Nor is it necessary to discuss further the reformative claims of reformatories. The fact that fully 60% of the male prison population of the United States are graduates of reformatories conclusively proves that the reformative pretensions of the latter absolutely groundless. The rare cases of youthful prisoners having really reformed are in no sense due to the beneficial influence of imprisonment and of penal restraint, but rather to the innate powers of the individual himself. A little bit of thunder early this morning. Doubtless there exists no other institution among the diversified achievements of the modern society which, while assuming a most important role in the destinies of mankind, has proven a more reprehensible failure in point of attainment than the penal institutions. Millions of dollars are annually expended throughout the civilized world for the maintenance of these institutions, and notwithstanding, each successive year witnesses additional appropriations for their improvement. Yet the results tend to retrograde rather than advance the purports of their founding. The money annually expended for the maintenance of prisons could be invested, with as much profit and less injury, in government bonds of the planet Mars, or sunk in the Atlantic. No amount of punishment can obviate crime, so long as prevailing conditions in and out of prison drive men to it. And that's the conclusion of that essay, chapter 14. And we'll go ahead and read the start, at least the introduction, of chapter 15 on page 205. Read Michael Malice's introduction. So this is Voltairine Declare, and I'm probably pronouncing that horribly wrong. Voltairine Declare, from Anarchism and American Traditions, 1909. And here's Michael. More popular with the unwashed masses than with true blue Americans in the 19th and early 20th century, the anarchist idea was often caricatured as an invasive foreign ideology. Voltairine Declare took pains to explain that anarchism and a hatred of the state is in fact far more American and had far more of a tradition on American soil than most ideas that were being bandied about in her time. In 1765, over a decade before the Declaration of Independence, Patrick Henry of Give Me Liberty or Give Me Death fame stood up in the Virginia House of Burgesses and basically said that King George was asking to be shot, and concluded with, quote, "If this be treason, make the most of it." Here, declare makes the case that anarchism is more American than that foreign dessert, apple pie. And we'll read again tomorrow. Bye-bye.